definitely a case of the battle of the agendas. We've got Barbra Streisand wants to make Yentl. And I was thinking, oh, she put out a film in 83, so she must have been starting to work on it in 1980. No. This was 1968 when she said, I want to do Yentl. And there was a play out, and that was a certain type of play, and whatever. So as far as I know, it wasn't a musical. And Barbra Streisand says, I want to do it. Well, I would say, go do it. I mean, you can't be young forever. And that's what happened. So many men said no to her, including her husband, which is like, why is her husband even involved in the entire story? Money. Now, I think power, because in 68, you're still talking, we're barely in the second feminist wave, and
you need money to produce a film. So any person who has money and says no to you means you don't get a film. That's how it works.
True. So, there's this, if you read the Wikipedia page, there's a series of men who said no to Barbra. No, you're not doing Yentl. And they threw everything at her. So, have an agenda, as in make sure you're going to do what you want to do, because there's going to be a point where you're going to be too old. So they had to change the story, that it wasn't a 16-year-old, but it's now a 26-year-old. And hear her tell it, it's even a 28-year-old. I didn't do the calculations how old Barbra was herself, but she was definitely over 30 at that point. And but then it has to be spun as now she's a spinster. Now she truly does not wish to. She has held off the matchmakers for all these years, and she's just saying, "No, I'm taking care of my father. Stay away from me." And then, of course, Daddy dies. The other battle of the agendas, I would say, is over time. How do we look at this film? Because at the time it was kick-ass feminism. She's going up against the patriarchy, and she's doing it as a woman, and that is in the songs. I am a woman. All of this stuff, she's a woman, and so am I. That is several points that, especially the songs, put a point to this, is that Yentl is a woman. And I'm going, but is she? In the book, which is a short story, she is clearly not a woman. She is clearly a trans man trapped in a female body. Is going to, out of her own volition, going to lead a man's life. And is never going to stop. At the end of the story, she will not be changing back to female clothing and going off to America. That is not in the story. That is film. And that's another agenda, is, okay, where can we find this feminist Valhalla? America. That would have been, for people from the 1900s, like 1900s, the double noughties of the 1900s, that would have been the place to go, is, yes, we're going to America. And that makes, in the narrative of 1983, when this film comes out, that's the narrative. We're doing feminism. We're letting this woman into a man's world. She has to do things for that. She has to look like a man. But at every point that we can put an emphasis on it, we are saying, look, this woman is doing all of this. And they hold up that narrative through her, when she goes talk to Avigdor and says, I'm actually a woman. And then he's like, after a lot of screaming and shouting, is like, okay, I've always felt something. And then the narrative of the film is, because she's a woman, he felt that she was different. And I'm going, sure. So here's the agendas. Current day agenda would be, oh, what if she was a trans man, like in the original story?
It's not even what if she was one. She is a trans man. He is a trans man.
He is then a trans man. Anshel is a trans man. I could buy it, except that I'm looking at this film in 2024 and I'm thinking, it really doesn't matter to her. She uses it as she needs to do certain things. She needs to study in her life. She cannot feel that she can have a life without studying. How can she study? She can study by being a boy. That is how you can do that. In the 2024 now, we can look at this movie and we say, oh, Anshel is a trans man. Yentl turned themselves over into Anshel and is now leading this new life. And in the book, that is definitely what's happening. Never going to go back. But I'm looking at this film and I'm seeing that Yentl is doing things because she thinks that as a student, to be a student, I need to be a boy. And then she just becomes a boy. She also has already been playing around with the shawl, the prayer shawl of her father. And I would imagine she's probably already had her brother's clothes on. That is the vibe that I'm getting from what they're not showing. But they're showing enough to say that she's going up against the patriarchy. But is she doing it because she's a feminist? Or is she doing it because she's just not feeling it? It's like the patriarchy, sure, but I just want to be a student. Oh, okay, I have to be a boy to do that. Well, put on the boys' clothes. And there's no real point where you see Yentl becoming Anshel, whereas in the book that is clear that that's happening. It's almost already happened the moment they put on the boy clothes and just go. What I think is happening in the film is we have a non-binary person who is living in this world that is utterly binary. And so what do you do? So for a while they are taking care of the parent. She's just living as she has lived. She is living as a she. And the moment that that's out, the whole environment is happy to just put her into this other family. And sure, and we're going to find you a husband. You're going to be busy. Don't worry, everything will be fine. And if she could have done that, she would have done that. But she couldn't. So she cuts her hair, puts on her brother's clothes, and off. And I think from that moment on, she is not a she, she's a they. And then watching the rest of the movie actually makes a lot more sense. And I do think Yentl as Anshel, falls in love with Avigdor, which is not an essential part of the story. So the film bigged that up a lot, because that's not necessary for the journey that they're going on. And in the book, Anshel falls in love with Hadass. In the book, Anshel goes to the father of Hadass and says, "What about me?" After they've rejected Avigdor. There's no... This entire film makes this huge thing about it. And Avigdor wanting Anshel to take on that... It makes no sense if you think about it. I mean, it's so well acted by Mandy Patinkin.
But it would be torture watching somebody you love with your best friend.
It was short-term thinking of, oh, but then I can visit, and then we can all sit around the fireplace and sew together, but of course Hadass is going to fall in love with her husband. He's lovely. Anshel is awesome. He's like the best husband ever. Why would she not fall in love with Anshel? And then the moment that happens, that happens in this film. And so the whole thing, I loved, when I was watching it over the decades, I loved the playing around with the ships, all the ships. All the three parts of the triangle here. Because all of them are actually reciprocated. And there's the point where Hadass asks Anshel, I am now demanding you as my husband. And so, she wants to go to bed, and she wants to have children, and she wants to go to bed. And that's the interesting part is, of course, it's the early 80s. It has to be super proper, etc. But there's this brief kiss between Amy Irving and Barbra Streisand. Like super brief, but it's there. And I don't think anybody's ever counted that as the first female kiss on screen. It was very brief. And then there's a very brief kiss between Mandy Patinkin and Barbra Streisand. And it's just as brief because the character goes, what about Hadass? How does this, what now? And then Anshel, or Yentl, is back to Yentl, says at that point, the rabbis don't consider this a marriage. Yeah, but they were at the wedding, and then Yentl says, God doesn't consider it a marriage. And I'm going, whoa, here's an agenda. 1983, God, according to this movie, does not believe in lesbian marriages. Now, I think most of the Western world at that point didn't believe in it, but I certainly think that the Netherlands was considering it and fairly open to it. But the whole concept of God doesn't consider it a marriage, that's a bit broad. So I'm willing to give that. It was superimposing on what somebody in their position would say in 1906 or so.
With a 1983 agenda.
In let's call it Lithuania. In the 1983 agenda. And that's always the problem with these period pieces. And this is, of course, a very fictional period piece. Is who knows what they would have thought. But the whole idea of a lesbian union marriage would have been declared ludicrous. Even by a feminist, forward-thinking person such as Yentl. And that's sad, but it's probably fairly true. But I think it also reflects the 1983 America. What I did like is that, well, I liked a lot, but within all the romances, I like that Avigdor offers Yentl, you can be my wife. We are going to a different town. We'll go into a different yeshiva, and then she goes, Yentl, they go, and it's like, no, not if I'm gonna be like wifely. I'm gonna not studying behind closed doors, etc. This is the life I need to lead. And so there's a part of me that thinks non-binary, but possibly Yentl is not aromantic because they're interested in relationship, I think, but it is certainly it is under the priorities of the life that she needs to lead. The relationship is not the highest priority. If the relationship had been a high priority in their life, they would have gone with a suitable husband in all those years that they were parading men for them. Would have been plenty of options, probably. Because they're always kind of like showing it as, oh, well, they're giving her the wrong type of man. They would have come up with a scholar for Yentl to marry. So yeah, so that's one agenda. Well, several agendas that I feel that have been going on in this film, and I think it is probably still left up to us, to the viewer, to decide. But it's certainly not, I think, as simple as it was made. The simplicity of this is a woman who did this only to become, to be a student.
To get the male privilege.
Yeah, to get the male privilege, indeed. And that is definitely a narrative that needs to be shown, because then you're showing all the things that she can't do, that Yentl can't do because she was born a woman. Yeah. And the question is, how much do you need to be outside of the norm to actually go up against all of this? Because this is a big ask. It's like, in order to be a student, this is all the things that Yentl had to do. That's what the movie's saying. Because at the end, Yentl goes on a boat after everything's fallen apart, but, put back together a little bit. Yentl sits on a boat or stands on a boat, beautifully singing, and there are these young girls reading scripture in Hebrew. So it's implying America is like the new place where things are different, which is what they say in the letter. And then America is going to be the place that's different. So in the film, Yentl is looking for a place to be free, to be a fuller person, to not be stuck in that little world of womanhood and marriage and children. And certainly true. That could have been true. However, it's going to be harder to find a yeshiva in America. It will be easier to find one that will take will take women, but I think the chances of it's going to be terribly small. So she could have also gone to Israel.
Not in 1904. There's nothing there yet.
Yeah. If you're looking for a yeshiva, because the learning that they're doing, all of the learning is religious learning. And they are making a point of saying specifically these are the books of the Mishnah and the whatnot, and that everything is in there. Legal, food, agriculture, all of it is in there. So it's like, yes, but the base of your learning is religious. Good luck finding that anywhere on the globe in
I think it's disingenuous of the movie to suggest that America is the salvation place for her, because I don't think, I never believed that for 1 second.
No, because it's gonna be hard work. They're gonna have to work. So as a scholar, Yentl is probably going to be able to work in some business being a scholar. Sure. But it's going to be administrative, and
they're going to end up in the garment district sewing stuff, because that's the reality.
Yeah, so that probably means putting boy clothes on again. If you don't want to get stuck in this little world of where all the women are going to be. And no marriage, because that means getting pregnant. So, unless they find another woman to marry, it's all very, very difficult.
The problem with the marriage to a woman for somebody who is not a man is that then the woman has to agree not to have kids, because that's one of the reasons you get married, which is one of the biggest problems I saw with the setup with Hadass, is that she has now a husband that will not give her a child, and does she agree with that? If she agrees with that, that's no issue. If she doesn't know, and that's a problem, because she expects to have a baby, and there is not going to be a baby, and that's a difficulty.
And that is exactly the reason why Yentl exposed herself when took Avigdor out, showed exactly, this is me, I'm a woman, physically I'm a woman, and you need to, and here's your letter for the rabbis, because that was the end of her adventure there. They could not continue, because Yentl loves Hadass as well, and Yentl loves Avigdor. So there was just no way to continue this life. The constraints that they have in this entire film is it's shown from the beginning to the end is what are all the constraints, and they are huge. And it looks for us, it looks like, yes, but they're very in a religious sect, etc. Well, but it wasn't only in religious life that being a woman was this restrictive. All of it was that way. The Western society was binary. And then the question is, what does a non-binary person do in that? I have no answer to that, but this is a thing that this movie is trying to show, even though I don't think they are actively putting that in. But with our modern day look at genders and the fluidity of it, is like, yeah, I don't see Yentl as being in herself being a woman. I don't think it meant much to her. The film is really trying to reinforce it, and that may have been the only way to show a story as gender fluid and diverse as this actually is in 1983. And the question is, would they have even been able to make this film in 1989 or in the 90s? Because the 80s were very...
This film was very special. It was in 1983. It was very special.
Yeah, and you don't see. They made Tootsie. There's a lot of there's a lot of drag roles for men. Not a lot, but they do pop up in those years, and there's a bunch of them that just follow before they finally go, oh wait, no, actually we should be making proper gay storytelling, etc., and just stop being so stupid.
But this is not gay storytelling. This is gender role and gender assignment storytelling.
Yeah.
Different from gay.
Yeah, but at the same time, there is... So you have the lesbian storyline with Yentl and Hadass. Although it's Anshel and Hadass from Hadass's perspective.
So it's straight.
But from Yentl's perspective is like, there was not true love, but there was certainly real love there. And that may or may not have been viable if they had lived in current day. And then there is Avigdor and Anshel. And Avigdor and Anshel, certainly Anshel was in love with Avigdor. And Avigdor says at the end, he says, I didn't want to touch you, I was scared. And then I'm going... Man, you've been touching Anshel for the entire film. Manhandling your buddy. Every single time. To the point where Anshel says, wait, can you stop manhandling me? And I don't do that. Yes, you do. So let's talk about Avigdor for a second. That is one alpha male. My goodness. Wow. I mean, the ranting and the screaming and the manhandling and the orders. He just throws out orders constantly, and he's a sweetheart. But at the same time, okay, yes, there's a lot of testosterone there, and there's a lot of entitlement or brash, manly stuff there. And Anshel, Yentl laps it up. They're very happy in this company. That is just fine. So yeah, I think it was a draw for Anshel. It's like, ooh, that's a real man. So, but Avigdor did feel it. And I'm thinking, hey, a little bit bi there. So we got some lesbianism, we got some bisexuality, we got all sorts of stuff going on here, and I like it. So yeah, that was my agenda for this film. I can't say anything about how realistic the world building is. What I will say is that Eastern Europe isn't a place. It's like Eastern Europe, 1904.
They're trying not to say Poland because that's...
Poland or Lithuania or any of that. They do name some of the cities, and due diligence would require me looking them up. And I did once, and I basically came to it's about Lithuania. And this film shows less so than Fiddler on the Roof that they are living in a wider world of that Slavic country, whatever country it is. They are all living in their tiny little personal world because they are leading the religious life, and they are not actually crossing over. They go to the big city, to Lublin, at the end of the film, and other than them riding around town in the carriage and trying to go, oh, this is big city, they don't go and have any interaction with non-Jews. That is, and that makes a lot of sense. That wouldn't be on their agenda at all. Well, I can't judge the costuming, whether that's any good, but it looks gorgeous. The hair of the women, so Hadass's hair and Yentl's hair at the beginning, look proper. You have, because there's kind of still coming out of the late 70s, so you still had those big poofy things, and then put the poof on top for their what's the era?
I think it's Belle Epoque era, 1900 to 1910-ish, yeah.
Yeah, so that they have these poof. Was that the Gibson?
It's the Gibson
girl.
Yeah.
So Yentl, unmarried but spinster, so she's in her 20s, has a very nice but workwoman's updo, yes, and it's very poofy. And then later you've got Hadass, who has their hair pulled back at the top, and then the rest is down, which is very 1970s.
Yeah, but it's also Polish.
And yeah, so that was it. It fits with she was yet unmarried. She must have, when she marries, Anshel is maybe 18 years old. Certainly not much older. There's no reason for her to be any older than that. So, and then she puts her hair up, and okay, it's Amy Irving. Hello. Beautiful, big, poofy. So you see the 1980s a little bit back in the early 80s in that poofy, all the hair is a bit on the big side. But it looks great. It's awesome. And the clothing looks proper. Everything's all the way up to here, like little ruffles and stuff. And of course what Anshel is wearing is what all the guys are wearing. You can see that they had to adjust a little bit to the upper body. And what Avigdor is wearing and the other guys is, what I like, the way it's done is that everybody's moving like this is the way it's supposed to be, and Anshel is not really moving like this is comfortable, because it's like, yeah. Later on, there's a coat that's more down, that it isn't got all sorts of stuff going on here, that Barbra Streisand is moving much more fluidly in. But then Streisand is not actually showing the character to be with the other people. It's very specific, walks out of the house at night and does a song in the streets, as one does.
Because you're Barbra Streisand, of course you do.
Hey, of course. And the music, absolutely fantastic. Like, literally. Does the film need the music? No. I am very honest about that. This film would stand as a drama, not music, filled drama, beautifully by itself. Everything works. The pacing is amazing. The how storylines flow into the next thing. It's very expressionistic rather than ABC storytelling. To go from how does she even think about marrying Hadass to there she is, they are, and at the wedding, and it's already done, and boom, we go. It's just beautifully done. I liked Avigdor bringing Anshel this letter of one of the greats, and then reading out all the things to do on the wedding night. Very sexy, very nice. Everything is just done so well, and I think visually it stands up. Yes, because it's kind of a little bit opulent, but these people were rich. The people she's married, that Anshel's marrying into, are rich. At that point, it can be opulent. It was more basic at Yentl's home. In the old village that she was in. That's another thing that occurred to me, is that money is not a factor in their life. Not at all. It's gonna happen or it's not gonna happen, but it's certainly not something that Yentl is going to do that's going to create money.
And it was thing that I was wondering about when I first saw the movie is he goes to yeshiva. That costs money. There is a money transaction somewhere.
Apparently not.
And I don't believe it.
Because there's nothing.
I don't believe it.
There is no money. And so is it a question like PhD students actually get paid to be a PhD student? Are you that level? That's possible.
Somebody has to pay for it.
Somebody has to pay for it. And this going to a prominent family every week to eat, that must also be part of their society setup. Is like, we want our eligible young women to meet the eligible young men, and the more learned this man is and the more time they spend reading the Torah, the better it is for my daughter. So none of it makes any sense money-wise, in the sense, even to the point where nothing gets explained. It's like, how does that world work? The economics of it. So it doesn't really. And once Anshel is married, they move into the parents' house. So it's clear. It's all done. Whatever this father's business is, Anshel's going to take over the business, because they only have one kid, and that's a girl. So a theme that is stated in the movie over and over again. It's not irritating, but now that I've said it, you watch it next time, you will notice. Is nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible. And that was a nice message, because if you're going with the feminist concept of this film, is Yentl has to show that it's not impossible. It was pretty impossible what they were doing. Your average person cannot actually pull that off. It's too much. On the other hand, women have done this for all of history, is put on men's clothes and live that life for however long that's necessary, or because they really couldn't do anything else.
I just watched a small documentary about a gentleman who had a long military career, surgeon in the British military in the 19th century. And when he died at a good ripe age, they found out he was assigned female at birth, basically. Mm-hmm. And the entire life.
Yeah.
A man.
Yeah.
So real. This is a real story.
Yeah.
This is not fiction.
Oh yeah, and this happened a lot. And the pirate stories there's a portion that's real as well. Yes, there were women who just became pirates because they just couldn't live the normal life.
Fully passed as a male. Because this guy was male his entire adult life.
Yeah. So, I refer you to Gentleman Jack. There have been trans men forever, and we only hear the tip of the iceberg. And I like that nowadays it is so much in the world sphere that gender can be fluid, and that people don't have to be the gender that they were assigned. And I think it's going to make for happier people, because making a portion of the population permanently stressed and dismissed is horrible. It's absolutely horrible. So this movie, I would recommend it to non-binary people, and I would love to hear your thoughts. And I would recommend it to trans men, and I would love to hear your thoughts. And I would love to hear everybody else's thoughts anyway, because I don't think enough is being talked about this movie, because it is actually quite special. It is a work of art. It is a work of labor of love. Somebody who says, I'm going to do this, and then 15 years later actually manages to do it, has something to say. And there's so much in the film that we can say, this was the message, or that was the message, or that was the message. And I like my interpretation. And that's available in this film. So that's good. Because when I was watching it as a teenager, I saw all the ships. I saw all the lesbian vibe and the gay vibe and everything. I was like, this is awesome. And now I see more. And I still like all the vibes. So yeah, let's all actually talk about films like this. in terminology of today and not go, oh, well, they probably meant that. Who cares what they meant? Yeah, we do want to know what they meant, and then we want to say, this is what we think it is right now, because it's all in there. And that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.